Hey guys, good video today. You can see the title on the top left there. What this guy is saying doesn't mean I agree with him, but is it possible that the Maersk ship there that hit that bridge was purposeful? You know, from a biblical standpoint, from what we see happening spiritually in this world, everything we're seeing, just everything together, would you doubt it? So let's learn about some of the impossibilities of the ship striking exactly where it did. What I heard was, I can't remember if it's in this video or not because I only watched this once, that of 600,000 bridges in the United States, only this one was hit. And not only was it hit, but it was hit in such a way, in such an unprotected area, like one of the only unprotected areas, and the way the bridge fell down, everything. So I don't know, but what is being said here is completely believable. A few things I want to say first. I want to talk about the eclipse just quickly because I've covered that quite a few times. So, you know, obviously, you know, there's a lot of deception out there. Okay, I think you know that this is the way our world is going to stay until Yeshua comes, until Jesus Christ comes. A lot of people are having the idea that, and I can't know for sure, and none of us can know for sure, but by looking at the signs, we can kind of interpret that this eclipse, you know, is it Jesus Christ coming? That all these good things that are going to happen? Let me tell you something. That is my hope. But considering that it's passing through 7 Ninevehs, 2 of those Ninevehs are in the path of totality. The other ones cross most totality. So it is right to say 7. And then 1 in Canada. Crossing Nineveh would suggest the sign of Jonah. You can say, you know, Jesus Christ and Jonah was in the fish for 3 days, 3 nights type thing, and resurrection. Guys, I don't think that's it. That's not what's going to happen. Just looking at all of Scripture as a whole in the Old Testament, I can't see that happening. There's a lot of other things that have to happen first, right? The sign that's being given, you can interpret this correctly, I think, because of the corruption, because of the murder, rape, drugs, overdoses, just violent deaths, depraved minds all over North America. Laws being passed like we're going to take away your rights, your biblical standpoint if you know, in Canada, Bill 367, LGBTQ laws, and the things that are happening in the United States. I could go on and on and on that have to do with Biden. I don't think God's going to reward us for that. And it's particularly over the place where all the evils. Listen, the whole world is evil right now. But, you know, it's something to say that Russia's actually seems pretty good. That says a lot for what's happening. It really does. No, I don't think they're guiltless and they shouldn't have done what they did. But I know why they did it. Because the U.S. caused a coup. So anyways, off base. There was that I wanted to say. So I believe it's a sign of repent, right? I believe God is actually giving people a chance to repent. What happened with Jonah and Nineveh was they gave them 40 days to repent, and they actually did. Jonah was upset about it, and one of the only times where the Bible becomes like comical, where you wonder if God can be funny, is in that story. I heard so much about this Netflix movie that I got to the point where I'm like, there's all these agendas and like, all-seeing eye, checkerboard, things they throw in movies like The Simpsons and all that type of stuff, but a lot more was Leave the World Behind. And I went to look for it to see if YouTube was selling it, because I didn't want to sign up for anything, but I ended up signing up for Netflix. Pretty good. It was like $5.99 for an entire month to listen. This is how they drag you in, right? And so anyways, I decided to watch a movie and see what was in it, because they were talking about this ship. That was one part of it. I'll tell you something. Produced by who? By the Obamas. The very first shot in it was Ethan Hawke and waking up in his bed. Julia Roberts, his wife, is in the room, and he wakes up, and in the scene there's 3 clocks. One says 6, the other says, so his mug says 6. And then there's a clock that's got the first part uncovered but the other part covered, so it's 666. As the movie progresses, you start seeing like the kids wearing checkerboard. It's just checkerboard, like either in their shirt or on their shorts. It's obvious they're worshiping the devil. If you have your blinders on, then you're not going to see these things. You look, there's paintings. It's the all-seeing eye. It's like, holy cow. So, it's pretty much almost the first shot. They go on vacation, and they're at the beach immediately. They drive, okay? Go to the beach. A ship is out in the ocean. Sorry, I'm very breathless. Always, because I do this, I try to get this out of the way first, and then so I have time for myself, but waiting for my meds to kick in. So I have wicked contractions in my throat. That's why I can't speak right, guys. So they're at the beach, and there's a ship out in the ocean, and it's an oil tanker. So it's a big ship, but it doesn't look big at first, and it's getting closer, so very slow, and all of a sudden, all the people realize it's gonna hit the beach, and it does, and it's pretty cool. But everyone's having to run because it's so big. They don't realize that this is coming so slow, and then all of a sudden it's just like. And so, is this predictive programming? Just that part right there. Was that predictive programming about this bridge? I'm going to say one more thing, and then I'm going to play this, and I'm going to comment along with it. So I don't know what things they're finding out, whether this was a cyber attack. It's completely believable. Could they do it? Yes. Could any country like China do this? Of course they could. Of course they could. Everyone has this type of power now. On the PBD, Patrick Bet David Valuetainment podcast, today I heard them talking about directed energy weapons. I started to investigate them, and there's several types. There's like particle ones. There's all types. I showed you in another video the laser beam caught by Dutch Sins. Okay, so this is real. People saw it in Hawaii. The only way you can see it is with an infrared, because lasers are invisible. They're invisible, but you can pick them up on a satellite infrared. And Dutch since did. And they got to him. The government did. They made him stop for a short while. He said, what were his very words? He said, I have to bow out respectfully, but I'm telling you that it's the government. That's what he said. But he's still doing it anyways now. These weapons exist. So what were they talking about today? About these weapons, the Havana Syndrome, something that's been going on since like the 60s or something. There are things like LRAD, where they can instantly sunburn you with, it looks like a satellite, they just point it towards you, the crowd control type stuff. Listen, if they have stuff like that, they have way more powerful stuff. And if they had that in the 60s, so I believe they have portable ones that people can carry around. And I just heard a story that they're targeting people in embassies, U.S. embassies, where a woman was, with her husband. She went by the window, and all of a sudden, she like fell on the ground because she was in so much pain, and all of a sudden, she had holes in her eardrums. And with that, and so many other people reporting these types of things, they're just directed. You can direct them. I've been saying, I'm going to try to repeat it as much as I can. Things like Lahaina, things like Texas, Canada, they happen. And what happens is, if these are global elites doing this, which I don't know. Myself, I do believe it. To what degree, I don't know. But I can understand the structural plan of what they're trying to do, to bring down, to make it look like the environment's all messed up, that type of stuff, to bring in globalism. So the question is, they cause so many bad things to happen in the world. Then they do a fire here. They wait a few months to do another fire there. My question is, when is the next one? When is the next one? Because they obviously like to use that. No, like I showed you the go look back at my videos, or look up Dutch since, look up Quebec fires. You're going to be absolutely amazed. Go look at that video. How do you think 50 to 100 simultaneous fires happen at once on a clear sky day? Can't blame it on campers. You can't blame it on glass. Can't blame it on any of these things, because it's happening as the rest of Canada. Like, Canada's a big country as far as the width of Canada goes. It's like 6,000 miles. Every province except one was on fire. Okay, I'm going to say this, and then I'll get to this. I'm making a point here. I'm not making it about race. This just happens to be the subject. To do a parallel, you'll see. A black man himself, he, on Valuetainment, he was, I forget what his name is, but he hired a whole bunch of people, top experts in their fields, to investigate if in fact shootings against black men were a real thing, like bias. So he did it, and the results came out to be no, that it wasn't. And so he's like, okay, that's funny. I didn't expect it to be that way. So what did he do? He did the study over again, and they got the same results. So here's the point I'm going to make. When the man got the results, all of a sudden he's the enemy of the state, right? Because they're trying to push an agenda. This isn't the way society is, okay? I can't count how many times. I can't count, because I don't hear people swearing and racism and all that type of stuff. I don't. Actually, to tell you the truth, it's against white people. I think you guys know that. I'm glad it's not around me, because I wouldn't take that. But he said once the results were in, he, someone told him not to put it out, or he'd lose his job and whatever he was doing. He hired these people. I don't know if it was by his own money or not, but he still belonged to some company, and they told him not to do it. He did it anyways, and here's my point. So imagine you have this information. You're a black man. I don't even think that matters to the point I'm going to try to make, but he sends it out, and so this is a document that's, let's just say it's 100 or 1,000 pages long. It's really, really big, the study. And within a few hours, someone, or people are saying to him, this isn't true. What you're saying isn't true. Here's my point. How could they possibly know if they haven't read it? Right? That's the point I'm making. And I'm going to say this. People are willfully blind. They're absolutely willfully blind. And it's no different with Jesus, with Yeshua. This video, when I saw this today, when I see a good video, I forward it, to my brother or to my dad or something like that. And I did that to both of them today. And I got that from my brother. This isn't true. I didn't say it was true. But my next question, I didn't get an answer, was, did you watch it? Did you watch any of it? Or did you just immediately decide that? That's my point. This is the world. That's why you have to look into things yourself. And so I'm going to play this, and I'm not saying it's true. Is it suspect? I think it's above suspect. Like, it's very suspect. So let's just play it.
All right, we have more changes unfolding in U.S. maritime supply routes and critical infrastructure. Changes that have nobody talking about the elephant in the room following this Francis Scott Key Bridge disaster. What this means.
Number one, before I even start, why isn't this all over the news? Well, for that matter, why isn't a lot of stuff on the news, right? What's happening? You know why? Because they're paid. The government has control. Someone's pulling the strings. They're not reporting on the most important things in the world. Now, you have no idea. I heard them say this saying that what happened with that bridge was, the equivalent of a thermonuclear bomb in the commerce world. Not the e-commerce world, but in the commerce world. Look back at my videos. I said they're picking the United States apart. And this is pretty big. This is a very big deal. $100 million a day goes through there. So, I don't know if this was like $80 billion a year. Big deal. And jobs too here.
For the U.S. economy, for trade, for inflation, how the U.S. has really two main ports of entry that have real major significance for our supply lines too. That's it. One on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and one was just taken out of play for years. This should be the story. How this isn't is mind-boggling. Folks, something else is happening here.
The equivalent of a thermonuclear bomb in the commerce world. Not the e-commerce world, but in the commerce world. Look back at my videos. I said they're picking the United States apart. And this is pretty big. This is a very big deal. $100 million a day goes through there. So, I don't know if this was like $80 billion a year. Big deal. And jobs too here.
For the U.S. economy, for trade, for inflation, how the U.S. has really two main ports of entry that have real major significance for our supply lines too. That's it. One on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and one was just taken out of play for years. This should be the story. How this isn't is mind-boggling. Folks, something else is happening here, we mean what you need to know, how to begin preparing for the impact to the U.S. economy. We'll also look at if this was in fact an accident, like the media is saying, or if it's deliberate, as this ship didn't collide with any of the other 600,000 bridges in this country. Instead, it collided with the single most consequential bridge, the only bridge that will collapse the U.S. supply chain. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates.
So immediately, think of the odds. What are the odds? 600,000 bridges. This one.
So let's start with this. What we just saw play out was one of the most consequential disasters on U.S. critical infrastructure in a very long time. The Francis Scott Key Bridge is not covering just any body of water, folks. This bridge collapse just blocked one of the busiest, really the most important port on the East Coast. The I-95 corridor on the eastern seaboard is what connects the north to the south. This is one of the most busiest important supply chains in the United States, and it was just shut down indefinitely. The only other one that's busier is on the West Coast in California. We're going to show you what happened last time we saw congestion at one of these two ports. That happened during COVID, and we all know the result. We're still dealing with the effects of that, higher interest rates, inflation, etc. The entire U.S. economy has just been dealt a major blow, and it's bizarre, to say the least.
It's starting to sound like the Black Horse, isn't it? Pair of scale in his hands, right? What is it for a denarius? Quart of wheat, something about, I forget exactly off the top of my mind, but this is what's happening.
Least that side of the story isn't being covered. There's a reason why this port in Baltimore is one of the busiest in the country, because certain types of containers that carry hazardous materials come through this port. You may have heard about that aspect on the news, how many of these containers that were on this ship were hazardous. Also, much of the fuels that are imported come through this port. We're talking diesels, nitrogen, chemicals that are like refined fuels, the type of materials that are needed to move an economy. Business Insider's reporting this port is now closed indefinitely. I'm hearing 3 to 5 years at the earliest. They'll need to basically build an entirely new bridge. Realize this isn't
pretty
just
big.
the port of Baltimore that's compromised. Anyone who says, oh, well, these container ships can just be rerouted to New York or some other port, don't understand what's happening. This is also the trucking industry, the railroads, commuters. The I-95 corridor is now
on that Maersk ship, okay? So I don't know if they said the States owns that. I don't know if it's in this video or another one, but they're saying, I believe it was that one, that they own these really big cargo ships. When you think of the States, you think they have so many, but maybe not ones like this. Anyways, on that one there, there's quite a few. Like every time you see, a shipping container, right? That's what you see on the highway. That's what you see attached to a big rig. And there's a lot of them. So that would affect truckers. Listen, this would affect everything. All down the highways.
Cut off from north to south, or vice versa. I-95 runs all the way from Miami to Canada, one of the busiest and most heavily trafficked interstates in the U.S., relied on to move and haul these containers above ground. These trucks are now going to have to reroute, go around Baltimore, and they shut down the sea passage for all the hazardous material loads. Here's Lara Logan, investigative journalist, explain what she's hearing from her DHS contacts. Watch this.
Investigation telling you?
Well, I have a better.
See, and before I even start, I've seen this woman before on something else. She's a reputable person. So I want to make that point.
question for you, Steve. Why are you coming to the mic telling the country that it's not when your own intelligence agencies are telling you it is? And I know they are, because I didn't make this up. These are not my words, right? I'm talking to people who are on the inside, some who are on active duty, some who are retired, and everyone, literally, from critical infrastructure in Department of Homeland Security to the intelligence agencies, they know there's no other. This is a cyber attack on a critical infrastructure corridor for the United States. This is, for those people who think this is just a river, this is in Baltimore, what does this matter? You don't know anything about what you're talking about.
Now, what's so odd about this is how the media doesn't ask any questions. The NTSB, for instance, just began their investigation into what happened.
Sorry, I have to back it up to try to recall something important, if I can. There. It would be a brilliant attack, an invisible attack. Okay, now this ship, okay, I remember watching a ton of documentaries. I spent a lot of time when I was sick on a couch. Watching the biggest ships, everything to do with them, electronics, everything. And these ships are advanced. They're not supposed to just black out. That's what happened. What did you blacked out twice? The electronics in them are very advanced, but they're very hackable. Can you remember there was what they believe, all the phones that went out in, what was it, like a quarter of the United States? What was that, just a number of weeks ago? Went out, AT&T. They believe that was likely 70%. This is what an expert that, again, was on valuetainment. So they bring in expert people. He said it was a 70% chance that it was China who did that. So if that's true, then this can be true. It would be brilliant, but it would also be suicidal for them.
Because I didn't make this up. These are not my words, right? I'm talking to people who are on the inside, some who are on active duty, some who are retired, and everyone, literally, from critical infrastructure in Department of Homeland Security to the intelligence agencies, they know there's no other. This is a cyber attack on a critical infrastructure corridor for the United States. This is, for those people who think this is just a river, this is in Baltimore, what does this matter? You don't know anything about what you're talking about.
Now, what's so odd about this is how the media doesn't ask any questions. The NTSB, for instance, just began their investigation into what happened. How they can come out so quickly, basically within minutes, and say, oh, there's no bad actor responsible. It's just odd. For example, how did the entire bridge collapse within seconds, like it was held up by chopsticks? Well, this is where it gets interesting. Scary, but interesting, because according to Dr. Stergios Matoulis, head of the Structures Research Group, he says what happened here, the reason why the entire bridge just came down almost instantly, was how perfect the impact was. How if this ship would have hit the bridge anywhere else, it would have survived. But the fact that it hit one of the two main pylons, it had no chance, basically. Look at this. The bridge is 1.6 miles long. The ship collided on the bridge, and the pylon was not able to take the excessive collision dynamic load, and the bridge collapsed due to progressive collapse. Removing one support redistributes loads in the structure, akin to the way loads shift when standing on one leg. Thus, even though it might look as a disproportionate consequence, the pylon collapse would lead to entire bridge collapse in all cases. So what he's saying is, out of the 1.6 miles of bridge that ship happened to make impact with, it hit the one specific spot needed to take the entire thing down, the primary pylon that would lead to complete collapse 100% of the time.
Wow, eh? And you know what they can do, and it wouldn't take that long to do? They could, they could do a 1/1000th scale or bigger and they could build. I'm sure they're going to do that, but who knows today, right? They just let things pass, but I don't think they can do that. They'll do a test, and I'm sure there's a place already that they can do it. Build a little model bridge, but to the exact specifications. That bridge is long, 1.6 miles long. That's quite long. That's over 2 kilometers. That's like, I don't know, is that like 2.5 kilometers? That's huge. Of any spot it could have hit, it hit right on the direct area. Wow. And I don't know, I may be wrong, but like most bridges, number one, this is never supposed to happen ever. I believe this is the first time that something this big. I don't know if they said there wasn't a pilot with them, like a tugboat pilot with them. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But it may have been the only one that didn't have, for such a major bridge, it didn't have, the big pile of rocks. Wow. At this point in time, my mind is telling me this was done purposely. That's what my mind is telling me, but I don't know. I gotta wait till these things come out. But another thing is, why would they tell us anyways? That would make us panic. That's a declaration of war. Could it be Russia from all the things that the States has been doing for Ukraine? Who knows?
It's either very bad luck, terrible coincidence, or it was deliberate. A cyber attack, maybe. The actors knew the specific location and make impact to cause the most damage. Again, here's Lara Logan explain what she's been told from her.
Put in the comments section. I'm not gonna look it up right now, but what came first? That attack on that place in Russia? Did this come after that? I don't know. I'm just trying to, I'm just accumulating these things in my mind.
Her DHS source. Listen to this.
Okay, I want to go. You just had this big thing with the FBI talking about what the Chinese Communist Party's cyber hacking unit that they've been monitoring for 10 years, and now they're saying it's out of control. Are your sources telling you that they feel there's enough information out there that it is a cyber attack, and is it a state actor or non-state actors?
100%, yes. They are saying that this is a cyber attack. You didn't have a terrorist group board the ship and commandeer it and take it over. You had somebody hack into the systems on board the ship, the GPS system, and reroute that ship. They did it in the middle of the night because they didn't want the crew to be awake. They didn't want everybody to be on full high alert. They wanted everybody to be asleep and you trying to wake people up and rouse people, because when I spoke to one individual who has, let's just say he worked in Baltimore for many, many years and was there when that bridge was opened. He knew when he looked at the security camera video of the harbor, the long version, the 7 minutes, he knew from the start of that video when he looked at that ship
containers
that it was
are on
not
that.
in the channel. You need to be in the channel to make that turn, to have any chance of making that turn. So now you're traveling. That is a river that flows pretty quickly, Steve, even under normal circumstances. Right? And at a certain point, you're committed. That ship is heavy, the load is heavy, the water is flowing at a certain speed, you've got very little room to maneuver. So at a certain point, there was absolutely nothing that they could do to stop that ship from the course that it was on, because they were not in control of it. And they had all of these other factors coming into play. That anybody could come out now when they haven't had time to do an investigation, I know for a fact that they're getting people inside their agencies that are telling them what they're telling me, and they're making public statements that completely contradict what anybody who knows this terrain, who knows it, and I don't just mean the physical terrain, I mean the cyber terrain and the terrorism terrain and the critical infrastructure terrain and all of that.
Again, was this a cyber attack or some deliberate act? I have no idea. It could be what the media is saying, a complete accident. But the part that I'm having real trouble with is how nobody's reporting the economic damage that's in store because of this. I happen to know about this. I did a lot of research on our supply chains during COVID last year and saw what happens when you have congestion at these two main ports. One of them being on the East Coast, that being Baltimore. The other is on the West Coast. And if either of them begins to slow down, we see massive disruption. The effects ripple through the entire economy, like what you see here. Goldman Sachs tracks U.S. supply chain congestion for this reason, and any bottlenecks in container ships accessing these ports. If you look back in 2021, look what happened. Massive bottlenecks began appearing. That was all during COVID, of course, and that was around the same time when inflation began to spike, hitting around 9% only months after that began. It took a long time for all this to get ironed out, for the supply chains to begin working normally again. So look, why the U.S. government publicly is stating there's no evidence of malicious intent around this bridge collapse before they've even investigated it. Again, NTSB just launched the investigation. How could they know that already? They can't.
How could they know that already, right? And they haven't done an investigation. It's true. The only way they would make it known to us is if it benefited them or if they're trying to wage war back. Wouldn't that make sense? Because maybe they want to keep it shadow wars. Because the other choice would be nuclear weapons. Are we in World War III? I believe we are. I've heard so many people say it, of the top minds of this world. And you don't need that. You just have to look around. You know, the saying goes, right? You know, there were a whole bunch of battles going on already for like 2 years in World War II. No different than World War I, but they didn't call it that. Excuse me. I have abdominal disorders, so. But they didn't call it that, so. Yeah.
Yeah. What they do know, however, is that an attack on U.S. critical infrastructure is an act of war. It's serious. It demands some type of official response, something that the Biden administration can't afford right now. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened. I don't know what happened. But I am saying that Ukraine has been using U.S. weapons attacking Russian critical infrastructure. They've been doing this openly with little reaction from U.S. leadership. And a cyber attack, like what some people are suggesting, could be responsible for this.
He's drawing a parallel. You can just look in the news. You can just look on your ticker at the bottom of your laptop, right? And see that, like, it's just like every day Russia being attacked, Russia being attacked, Russia being attacked. Maybe they want to get back. Just so much stuff going on, but hey, those that belong to Yeshua and Elohim, I'm not going to say that we're going to be kept out of it, because we will always face tribulations. But, you know, for us, the veil is lifted. We can see these things.
Bridge collapse, that would be invisible. Cyber attacks aren't flashy unless they're reported on or the bad actor takes credit. Otherwise, there's no way to know it's not some awful accident that we're all witnessing. And what happened in this case was the ship's electrical system was malfunctioning. They believed they were losing power, preventing them from steering the ship. I don't know. Let me know what you think. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.
So the other thing is, and you may not be aware, because a lot of people aren't aware of the capabilities and the specifications of military weapons, especially in today's age with electronic warfare. A lot of people don't know about this. I don't know what kind of safeguards big expensive ships have like that. They're probably not designed like that, but can they stand on the shore and use an interrupter and shut the ship off? Yes, but it seems like that ship was steered. Can they take it over? Could they do that from space, from a satellite? Why not? They can take it over and they can steer it. If they can get in and turn off our power from another country, if they can turn off our water mains and even explode them because they're all under pressure, get to know Elohim, Yahweh, today, because the things we're seeing are getting so much worse. And this, I'm not going to say, I don't know, it could be a mistake, right? There's always that. But what I'm saying is, like, this is a very big event. That's a lot of money lost. If it was the 1920s or 40s, you know what they would do? Within that, maybe even that very day, within a week, no more, they would have reversed that ship. No matter what was in it, they would have reversed it, pulled it off, and tried to clear it as much as they could. Everything takes so long now. Anyways, guys, I thought this would be pretty interesting to learn, and yeah, so take care, guys, and God bless.